As of today, information is being controlled by small groups of people who can always show you one side of the argument instead of the other. Throughout history, language has always been one important tool to both oppress people and free their consciousness. And personally, when I was younger, if I was in front of somebody who appeared as having more confidence than I didn't really quite know how to defend my ideas, how to defend my position. I was always the kind of the victim, or I considered myself the victim in any social situation where somebody had a different opinion than mine. But as I grew up, I realized how many of my assumptions were just based on what other people said and not on what I thoroughly believe or what I have educated myself into believing. When you start to get good with sleight of mouth, you discover how many of the assumptions people hold are just subjective worldviews, and no matter how many facts and details they provide about, oh, I have seen this on CNN, or I have seen this in this book, or this influencer says that, or in the news they said it. In the end, you can use any detail you want to justify what you already believed. And when you are being exposed to something that disproves what you believed so far, you will just ignore it unless your mind is open enough to consider the possibility you were maybe wrong. Despite that, I don't see anything wrong with having a subjective worldview, because in the end, every worldview is subjective to some extent. It is just about, did you decide it yourself? Did you decide of appropriating to yourself that worldview based on your thoughts, based on your thoughtful education? How did you educate yourself on the topic you are discussing? Or did you just follow what somebody else said without even questioning which interest eventually did they have in convincing you to believe this? On the opposite, after having been using sleight of mouth for years, I realized that as of today, I can always defend my position no matter what the person tries to get me stuck into, whether it is during a debate, during any social situation, and more specifically in coaching when I have somebody who is arguing that no, their situation can't change because they are stuck because blah blah blah. And then we always find a thing they did not think about, or something that disproves the main reason why they believed they were stuck, and then they find the solutions by themselves. So even if language has been used in history to oppress people and prevent them from thinking too much by themselves, you can also use it to free yourself, and I think it is the best tool to elevate yourself above the condition you were born into, because before the actions you will need to put in place, whether it is financial, physical, whatever it is you want to change right now, before putting in place the actions, you need to question the assumptions that you can't, or question the assumptions that you will not be able to succeed at this, which is what everyone grows up with. We are partly in a society that portrays victimhood for many reasons and in many different ways. Even with that, you can just grow out of that mentality and discover how many new opportunities there are out there that maybe you thought so far it was just out of reach for you. I even think seriously that any successful coach or any successful, charismatic leader obviously, but before that, any person who is helping others and who is doing a great job at helping others intuitively somehow became a master at sleight of mouth, because it is about always noticing which one is the part in a person's sentence to justify why they are stuck, why the world can't change, why everyone is against them. Whenever you hear a sentence like that, there is an element of the sentence that needs to be addressed more than another one. Mastering sleight of mouth means that you always know intuitively which part of the sentence to target and which one to just dismiss. And that is a process you can find down below in a method that is giving all the sleight of mouth patterns one by one, breaking them down and giving you a method to simplify your learning so that you know where to start and you have a better acuity for when people say this is how I need to reply or answer. Many ways of using sleight of mouth could also be counterproductive. Maybe you would use it in a way to try to break people's beliefs, which will just cause resistance, whereas it is more about going back to the roots of when and why did they start believing this, and finding either a counter argument or any other evidence that prove not that their cause or belief is wrong, but that there are alternatives. It's not about restricting to I'm right, you're wrong. It's about opening the worldview to there are many other alternative systems that can be used instead of the one you're using. If you don't want to change, fine, don't change. If you want to change and you think you can't, that's where we use Sleight of Mouth. The second step in mastering this skill is to identify what could become the knockout reframe. The way we put it with a friend back in the day. The knockout reframe refers to the simplest thing that will make the biggest amount of impact in the person's life with the least amount of words. In a conversation, we can move in so many different directions. There are so many counter evidence, counter proofs. The idea is which sentence can you say that will reframe most of the implied evidence of the person you are interacting with. And this one is more a skill to develop down the road. I don't promise this one can be acquired just in 1 week. That depends on your current level. That depends on how trained you already are in communication skills. It is possible though, and down the road you will definitely figure that out because you have been using many different tactics. So the last concept here to remember is when you have all the patterns, once you know all of them, just pick one per day, and your mission for this one day is to use this one pattern. If you start by the chunking down pattern, which is a pretty simple one, then you have a whole day, and in as many conversations as possible, you need to use that one pattern with as many people as possible, either while describing your own thoughts to somebody else or while questioning somebody on their limitation or on their stubbornness. If you discuss sometimes with colleagues at work, for example, who have a stubborn point of view, it will just help you clarify where does this belief come from and how could I reframe this if it was a serious conversation. The more you develop those skills in conversations that don't have any big outcome, there is nothing to pay or nothing to win, it's just to practice your skills, the more intuitive it will become. And you will notice at some point it is always kind of the same objections that keep coming back when you talk about a specific topic. So whenever you talk about a certain political field or this or that, you will notice people keep referring to the same kind of arguments, and then you can educate yourself on okay, where do these beliefs come from socially, philosophically, psychologically? Where does that come from? Personally, I refer to emotions quite often, which emotions people base their judgment on, and that is guiding my intuition for, okay, this is just coming from something negative, no need to force and push on that. However, this is hope. They argue about this because they feel hope about a change on this. Okay, I'm gonna go there. That is how I formed my intuition down the road. You may base yours on more philosophical principles than emotions. That is something you will have to figure out for yourself. But if you want to boost and accelerate your skills, you have this method down below with all the patterns outlined one by one, explanations, clarifications, and examples to really make you understand how this is being used in a conversation where you want to help somebody or when you want to disprove something that is attacking your value, maybe as an employee, maybe as a husband or a wife. How can you defend your position without being aggressive? We don't need that. But how can you defend your position socially to make sure you stand up for yourself whenever it is needed, and you can distance yourself from manipulative people who sometimes try to impose on you a worldview that is not serving you in any way? That is down below if you want to check that. Thank you for listening. Good luck with Sleight of Mouth, and see you in the next video.